A Bayraktar flew at the event with 200s. Luckily, our driver is experienced. Tagil, he quickly turned, and accordingly, the Bayraktar fell and exploded on the side.
Ukrainian aviation is hitting hard across the entire front line. Near Bakhmut, a Russian command post and infantry positions were destroyed in a precision strike using French-made AASM hammer-guided bombs, demonstrating Ukraine's growing air power and tactical reach. These strikes not only disrupt Russian coordination but also highlight Ukraine's ability to integrate Western technology into effective frontline operations. The Ukrainian Air Force has significantly intensified its operations in recent weeks, conducting daily precision strikes across multiple fronts. Utilizing advanced Western-supplied weaponry, such as French AASM hammer and US GBU guided bombs. The aftermath of the large-scale use of fiber-optic guided FPV drones, the fields are completely covered with them.
Оце все поле в оптоволокні. Геть, все тягне за собою. Рибак, блядь. Ваня, а ти чого собі не взяв? Ти чого собі не взяв Олески?
Russian forces are already prepared for an attack on Sumy region, with sufficient troops concentrated near the border, State Border Guard Service spokesperson Andriy Demchenko. For weeks, Ukrainian commanders have reported on Russian troop movement near the Sumy region.
Well, the enemy indeed has such a large number of its forces and resources, both in personnel and equipment. Within the Kursk region, in particular, the buildup began from the moment when Russia was trying and attempting to push out the defense forces of Ukraine who were conducting their operation within the Kursk region. That is why the enemy continues to hold them. We periodically see a certain change perhaps in the quantities and enemy servicemen and equipment in this sector. But again, the enemy has enough forces there to carry out actions against our border to attempt an attack on Ukrainian territory.
A Russian soldier from the front lines is trying to open his eyes to the truth, because Turkey and Washington are not on Russia's side. Turns out Turkish Bayraktars have already destroyed several Russian vehicles.
Here to give you an understanding, the negotiations in Turkey were all for the good, and for the good of Ukraine, Europe, and America, to our detriment. Why do I say this? First, because all of Europe and Washington have united with Ukraine. That's the first thing. And second, we have Bayraktars now here. And Bayraktars are Turkish drones. And we got them. Was it literally the day before yesterday or yesterday? The day before yesterday. The day before yesterday. Into our loaf. Or into the Neva. A Bayraktar flew at the event with 200s. Luckily, our driver is experienced. Tagil, he quickly turned, and accordingly, the Bayraktar fell and exploded on the side. That's the first thing. Secondly, already in the direction of Selidovsko, from Pushkin. They set a couple of cars on fire with Bayraktars, so Turkey is in character. So we are waiting for your help. We need it. And victory is ours, but the war is not over yet.
Donald Trump has doubled down on his criticism of Vladimir Putin, and now wants to prove he isn't tapping us along by issuing Putin a deadline. Donald Trump's threats directed at Vladimir Putin's Russia in recent days appear to have fallen on deaf ears. On Thursday morning, the Kremlin's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov was asked about the possibility of a call between the Russian and US leaders. The spokesman said Putin currently has no plans to speak to his counterpart in the White House, signaling Mr. Trump's ultimatum isn't having an effect. This comes as US President Donald Trump is growing increasingly frustrated at his Russian counterpart and has now set a 2-week deadline for Putin to prove he isn't tapping us along. He told reporters, "We're going to find out whether or not he's tapping us along, and if he is, we'll respond a little bit differently." but it'll take about a week and a half, 2 weeks. Some Republicans in Congress and advisors in the White House are urging President Trump to implement new sanctions on Moscow as frustrations grow over Vladimir Putin's escalation of attacks on Ukraine. So far, Trump has held off from implementing more penalties, believing he could work with Mr. Putin to end the war. However, according to Reuters, U.S. officials have prepared new economic sanctions against Russia, including banking and energy measures. They say the sanctions package is ready to implement based on Trump's order. One option supported by some Trump advisors would be for the president to embrace or not obstruct legislation introduced by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal last month. This would set a 500% tariff on goods imported from countries that buy Russian oil. Speaking to reporters on Wednesday, Trump said imposing sanctions could antagonize Mr. Putin. If I think I'm close to getting a deal, I don't want to screw it up by doing that. As conditions for ending the war in Ukraine, Vladimir Putin wants a written pledge by Western leaders to stop NATO's expansion eastwards as well as the lifting of sanctions. 3 Russian sources with knowledge of the negotiations told Reuters. Stopping NATO's eastward expansion would mean ruling out Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova, and other former Soviet republics joining the defense alliance. Putin also seeks a resolution of the issue of frozen Russian assets in the West and protection for Russian speakers in Ukraine. One of the sources said that if Putin can't secure a peace deal on his terms, he would use military force to show that peace tomorrow will be even more painful. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly pushed for Ukraine to join NATO. Russia has opposed this as this would bring NATO forces close to its borders. NATO previously said it would not change its open door policy, which allows for the alliance's expansion, just because Russia demands it. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for a 3-way summit with his counterparts from the United States and Russia, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, as he seeks to force Moscow to halt its 3-year invasion. Putin rejected calls to meet Zelensky in Turkey earlier this month, and the Kremlin has said a meeting between the two leaders would only happen after some kind of agreement is reached. If Putin is not comfortable with a bilateral meeting, or if everyone wants it to be a trilateral meeting, I don't mind. I am ready for any format, Zelensky said in comments to journalists. The Ukrainian leader said he was ready for a Trump-Putin-me meeting, and also urged Washington to hit Moscow with a package of hard-hitting sanctions on its banking and energy sectors. We are waiting for sanctions from the United States of America, Zelensky said, adding, Trump confirmed that if Russia does not stop, sanctions will be imposed. We discussed 2 main aspects with him, energy and the banking system. Will the U.S. be able to impose sanctions on these 2 sectors? I would very much like that. The Ukrainian leader had previously appeared to express frustration at Washington for not having announced fresh sanctions on Moscow after Russia rejected a coordinated Western appeal for an immediate ceasefire. Despite months of U.S.-led diplomacy, the 2 sides appear no closer to striking a deal to end the 3-year-long war, triggered by Russia's February 2022 invasion. Tens of thousands have been killed. Much of eastern and southern Ukraine has been destroyed, and Moscow's army now controls around 1/5 of Ukraine's territory, including the Crimean Peninsula, which Russia annexed in 2014. Zelensky also said that Ukraine is yet to receive a promised memorandum from Russia on its demands for a peace deal. Ukraine has accused Russia of dragging out the peace process, following the first direct talks in more than 3 years between negotiators from the 2 sides, which were held in Istanbul earlier in May. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Wednesday that details on a second round of negotiations would be announced soon.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comments section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.